Now pollinators, let's talk about pollinators. They're extremely important to our existence, to our life, to our garden. So why are pollinators important? Could you imagine a cup of coffee with just a cup? Could you imagine a garden without flowers? Or even a plate without vegetables or fruit, without food? All those things are important for pollinators to help us produce and get the harvest we need from our plants worldwide, but I mean especially out here in our backyard garden. Lots of research is showing that pollinators are on the decline. Bee populations are going down. There's been a lot of research done. The number of pollinators that we have, or bees especially, butterflies, all those different kinds of good insects as pollinators, they're in decline. They're in reduction of their population, partially due to pesticides and things of that nature. There may be other environmental factors involved. Nevertheless, they kind of are on the downswing. So, seeing that they are so important for our gardens, what can we do to make sure we have pollinators healthy, and in our area, our neck of the woods, to help pollinate our garden plants? And that's what we're going to talk about today. First, what are the pollinators? Let's make sure everybody's clear on that and what it means. It's the obvious ones, such as your bees, your butterflies, your moths, the ones who come at night, and they're pollinators. You have small mammals, you have birds, especially hummingbirds. So you have all these different types of allies out here in our garden that are pollinating for us. So what does that mean? And so they visit the flowers in our yard, in our garden, licking off the nectar or the pollen. Then they go to the next flower and they do the same thing, and that transfers and then pollinates those flowers by bringing up pollen from plant to plant to plant. And that's what gets your vegetables started, and you end up having a harvest. So it's important. And so again, they truly are essential. They truly are important for our existence. They're important for you to have a harvest in your backyard garden. Now there are some alternatives. Unless you get a Q-tip and you like to go out and try to cross pollinate your different flowers, the best thing to do is not that. The best thing to do is go ahead and take care of your pollinators, give them some place to have the food, water, and shelter that they need, and they will be here to assist you out here in your backyard garden. Alright, so what can we do to promote pollinators? So I mentioned a second ago, so you got food, water, shelter. Practically anything in this God's earth needs those three things to survive and at least thrive. So what can we do, whether we got a big garden, whether we got a backyard, whether we just got some flowers, whether we have a farm? It's doing those things, put in place areas so they can be sheltered, that they have the food that they need, and that they have water that they need for existence. So we'll kind of go through some of those important points and tips and what you can do to help out and attract your pollinators in your backyard garden. Alright, let's first off talk about the food side of it. So we can make some conscious decisions to go ahead and plant the right kind of plants that will allow for our pollinators in your area, or if they're passing through, they'll be taken care of while they're here. And that's for, like again, for your birds, for your hummingbirds, for your bees, for your solitary bees, for your wasps, all those different kinds of pollinators, even bats. There's things we can do to support their vitality here in our area. And so first off, and it's one that I've talked about in a number of other videos, but your native wildflowers. That's important because those are your native plants that have survived and thrived in the particular environment that you live in your area of the state, your area of the United States, in your zone. So there's certain plants that just do better here, and they're native species to this area. Always go with that if you have the opportunity. So I do plant some zinnias and some marigolds, things that aren't necessarily native here, but I also go with some wildflowers, a native wildflower mix that I also put in one of the beds and just completely cover that bed, and that becomes a big attractant for our pollinators. And we can use specific plant species to support specific types of pollinators. And let's give an example there. You can plant milkweed, and it's just a name. It's not weed. It's a flower type of thing. You can plant milkweed, and the monarch butterfly comes as he's passing through migrating. He comes and he deposits some eggs on your milkweed plant, And guess what happens? Those little larvae come out and they turn into these big, beautiful yellow and black striped caterpillars, and they're just incredibly cool to see. Now they will strip your plant of any foliage. That's okay. I'm supporting. I'm able to get some really good pictures, some good views of the monarch larvae, and then of course we get to support the monarch butterfly, which has seen significant diminishment of the population. So hey, we get to help out there too. So you can do specific types of species again to support specific types of pollinators. Another little trick is, although not native, but you got different kinds of herbs that are really good and they really attract pollinators. They attract other good insects that attack the bad ones as well. But you got things like mint, you got basil. Basil is just incredible. I have some lemon basil that was out here in a bed, and I mean, every time you walk out there was just a swarm of bees around it, and then our wildflower plants were right next to it, and just bees, pollinators. Everybody was over there having a good time enjoying that nectar, and in return they were going through my garden and pollinating all my plants. So it was a win-win. But basil, mint, oregano, chives, there's a few different kinds that you can plant that the insects or the pollinators really attracts them, and then let them go to seed. Because when they go to seed, a lot of times is when they'll start flowering, and when you're really going to pull those pollinators into your garden or your backyard. And also try to plant different species so that flowers and vegetables, but that flower at different times throughout the year. So you have some things that come quickly, early in the spring. You'll be able to attract those pollinators and feed them. You'll be able to do that in the summer, and then towards the late fall, before that the hard freeze comes in and wipes most everything out. But plant a variety and you'll have blooms throughout the year, which means you're going to keep attracting your pollinators throughout the year. And if I want on food or shelter, you can kind of take it either way, but if you have an opportunity to have a little bit of area, a little space that doesn't have grass or doesn't have pine straw, and it gets wet a little bit, or you may even have to wet it, but generally if you let it, when it rains, it rains. This area maybe is in the shade, it kind of stays moist. That's actually very good for butterflies. They actually land in that and they eat some of the minerals. They take some of that off of the soil, the surface, and they use it for their benefit from a nutrition standpoint. Wasps, who are pollinators, they also like certain ones. They also like the mud as well. And I see them in my little drainage ditch over here. I see them all the time in there going and getting little pieces of dirt. Some of them are dirt daubers. But it's also good just to have those wasps in our area, and they enjoy that mud as well. All right, the second part of that equation to keep your pollinators healthy and attract them to your area is to have shelter. And pollinators need shelter, right? Because they have, if we have severe weather, things of that nature, or there's predators, they need to have somewhere they can go and hide and get out of the bad weather, the wind, that kind of thing. It just gives them some shelter. And what helps is you can incorporate different levels, or canopy levels, so to speak. And if you look at my garden videos, I'll have smaller plants in one area, usually facing the sun. It'll go up in size in the middle of the raised bed, and then on the edges you probably have some kind of trellis system working, whether it's for pole beans or cucumbers or whatever the case may be. So you got different levels going throughout your garden, and that is a benefit for the pollinators, because they're able to get into those different areas and hide and protect themselves and be readily available for tomorrow. Let's just say we're readily available to go and pollinate our plants tomorrow. Leave dead branches and snags and so forth, leaves in certain areas. Let them just sit there, let them just kind of decompose. That's actually going to be probably some shelter for some of our pollinators. And instead of trying to get carried away and be trying to get everything too clean, leave a little bit of that natural ground clutter, let's call it that, alone, and allow them pollinators to shelter in there. Just another benefit, trying to keep them attracted here to our garden in our area. And so you can build or install a bee box, basically, and what that's really for is your solitary types of bees. So you got mason bees is one that comes up in my mind all the time, and then I have a number of them here that live here. And I'll show you the box over here. If you see the box I'm showing on the screen right now, and if you look within the bamboo poles on the sides, the bamboo, you can see there's a dirt clod covering the opening. So a mason bee actually goes in, deposits an egg, forms a seal, puts another egg, forms a seal, and they do 3, 4, 5 in each one of these pieces of bamboo. And then when it's spring, when it's time, they actually put a little bit of food in there too. So they're able, when they wake up, they're able to eat, and then they eventually drill their way out. Hopefully the first one or the last one ends out first, so they don't get stuck. But no, but the solitary mason bees are really cool. And there's other solitary types of pollinators that will take advantage of that as well. And finally, leaves some, I talked about having some, not muddy, but some wet area or moist area. Also leaves some dry area that isn't built up with too much leaves and that kind of thing. And what that does just kind of encourages your ground dwelling bees to be able to nest into the ground right there as well. So again, just another helpful hint. Anything we can do to have those pollinators here, and especially living here, it's a benefit to us and our garden. And finally, don't forget, all living things need water. Again, food, shelter, and water. Let's talk about water. So making sure we have a good, clean, safe, reliable source of water is key. You want to make sure whether you have running water, whether you have a little pond, where you have a bowl, whatever you got. Bird baths. I got several bird baths that are in my yard, a couple in the garden back here. And that's just to enable those insects, those pollinators, and the birds and everybody else loves them, but it gives them the opportunity to get some water. And again, that's the other nectar of life is water that they got to have. And we enable that as well, having water features or water sources. All right, so we talked about the 3 vital things for life, and that's food, water, and shelter. The 4th one I want to talk about is being organic and not using harsh pesticides. Because look, again, the research has shown that bees and other pollinators are coming down in numbers. They're just not as many as there used to be, and there's various reasons, but pesticide use is one of those. And so what I really preach, and I have some videos, I can put links down below, but is learn the elements of integrated pest management and only use pesticides, real harsh chemical pesticides, only in the last choice. And I personally don't use them ever. I'd rather lose my plants than killing everything that moves. So look, 7 dust, when I first started gardening many moons ago, I used it, didn't know any better. You sprinkle some 7 dust out, and you're trying to kill the worms, caterpillars, whatever's on your plant. But every bee that comes by and gets into that, gets a little bit of that on them, they're dead. Every butterfly that gets it on them, they're dead. So pesticides really don't discriminate. Your 7 dust and things of that nature just doesn't discriminate. They're going to kill whatever bug gets around them. And that's what they do. That's what they're made for. So use organic means of pesticide or bug management. You have neem oil, you have BT, which is short for I forgot, bacterial third genus or something like that, but that's use that on caterpillars, and it kills caterpillars. It forces them to where they cannot eat any longer, or they can't absorb food, and they die within a couple days. Neem oil, basically it doesn't necessarily kill the insects, but it keeps them under control. And it's also just good from a deterrent standpoint. Then we have other strategies within integrated pest management, and that's different kinds of plants interdispersed within your vegetables can help, such as marigolds. That helps kind of deter some of the bad bugs. You also have a plant that you may plant somewhere that you want to sacrifice for the good of the rest of the garden. Here's an example in my fall garden when I do Chinese cabbage or bok choy. I'll plant a couple over in one particular area of the garden. I'll plant a couple of those bok choy or the Napa cabbage over in one part of the garden, and I can assure you every single time I'm going to get caterpillars on that plant. So if I do that over on the edge, I might be able to get away with my other plants elsewhere in the garden. So it's just kind of some strategies you try to do to trick the bugs. Other plants that you plant, you let them go to where they start to go to seed and flower. That attracts certain predatory good bugs. And so again, just different strategies. You don't have to use 7-Dust. You don't have to kill everything that moves. There's a better way. Look up, check out organic, check out integrated pest management. Look at those principles, and I bet you'll be more than happy to follow those and be happy and have a good, bountiful harvest. All right, look, at my fifth and final tip here is communication. So what I mean by that is your neighbors, your mom and dad who have a garden, talk amongst yourself. Maybe not everybody is quite as aware of wanting to follow organic practices, is not aware of the number of pollinators and how they're decreasing due to pesticide use and runoff. So just communicate with those that you know, those that you live near. Spread the word. Try to be organic. I'm not a Greenpeace environmentalist wacko or nothing like that, but I also want to make sure I take care of my garden. I want to make sure I know what goes into my body, my family's body from a chemical standpoint. It's just all just important to me. Maybe important to you. Check out integrated pest management. I'll do a video on that in upcoming weeks. Nevertheless, plan for pollinators, plant for pollinators in your spring garden. You're going to be very happy with doing that. You're going to have more pollinators than you ever had. You're going to have a better harvest than you ever had. Hey, just a quick message on pollinators. Garden on, plant for pollinators, and we'll see you on the next video.